Insight from Ukraine and Russia is back. This time he's exposing a Ukrainian intelligence program to bring the war home, so to speak, to Russian families. It's pretty weird, so we are going to be breaking it down right now. Okay, first let's make sure you guys can see him in addition to me. And also, as always, guys, I always link to Insight's channel. He does great work, and it is tough to be a YouTube content creator, so you should definitely become a member of his channel. It's the best way to support any of us. Certainly a lot of advertisers, YouTube, they don't really care much for us us Ukraine war content creators. So we appreciate all your support. Let's take a look.
Ukrainians not only listen to Russian soldiers' phone conversations, they also call their relatives. That's a great way to show that Ukrainians know everything about Russians. So in case they decide to commit any war crimes on occupied territories, they will be found. Let's listen to one of such soldiers whose mother received calls from Ukrainian intelligence.
Okay. This, I think, is pretty interesting for a couple of reasons. First, the policy of sending oftentimes false flag or threatening messages to soldiers' families is not that uncommon. In fact, in the Vietnam War, one of the programs that the U.S. did was actually in Vietnamese culture. The ghosts or spirits of ancestors are much more seen as being much more direct and involved in day-to-day lives of Vietnamese. It's part of the spiritual practice. And so to exploit that, the U.S. would actually play tapes that sounded like spooky, ethereal voices of, old Vietnamese telling their progeny, right, the Vietnamese soldiers currently fighting, that they should go home, that the fight wasn't worth it, that they were going to join them in the afterlife, all sorts of stuff to try to scare and threaten the North Vietnamese, again, using their families and traditions as sort of a tool.
Копаем? Кого?
Окопы.
Я думал, вы уже начали этих закапывать.
Ни одного пока еще не было.
Пусть сами своих копают, да,
Не копают, вообще люто. Лабиринты у них надо. И опять звоните матушке.
тварь. Ты почаще звони ей, а то, чтобы она, знала, что...
Yeah, this is one of the things that is so hard for soldiers and their families. Here, we're going to slide it up a little bit. When you're a soldier and you are deployed, oftentimes you are worried almost as much about your family back home. And it makes sense. You are in control of at least some of what happens to you. You choose to put on your body armor. You dig your fighting positions. You know when you're safe and when you're not. But you don't know anything about what's happening to your family. And it's one of the big tragedies of the really 20 years of war that the U.S. was subject to, is that we would have 1-year deployments. And oftentimes it would be 5 or 6 year stretches where the demand for soldiers was so great that it was typical to do 12 months of deployment, 12 months back at home, and then 12 more months of deployment. And that is incredibly taxing on families. One, because basically in a 3-year stretch, a spouse may spend 2 of those years functionally a single parent. But the husband, or often husband, I shouldn't say that, I served with many female soldiers, the deployed spouse, they have a hard time feeling like they can't support their family through issues or crises. It's also hard because even though deployed soldiers don't pay taxes on their income, and so it can support their families to a greater degree generally than when they are stateside, that often doesn't offset the additional burden of childcare, the additional burden of a spouse that doesn't have that support at home. Maybe they can't work their regular job, Oftentimes, spouses will actually move the families, the children, to be closer to grandparents. So, and all of those things are huge life adjustments for any family, but just a massive adjustment for children and spouses. And you have to remember that life still happens while you're deployed. So one week, you may hear your child's getting bullied at school, and you're on the other side of the world, unable to help them deal with this issue. You may hear that your spouse has a medical scare of some kind, or your spouse may lose their job. All of these things can really just get magnified in terms of the burden on the morale of the soldier. And so this is why targeting families back home is highly effective as a technique, even though it can be sometimes pretty cruel.
Эти твари, брат. Вот что интересно, твою мать, почему, как они могут вычислять это? Как? Если российские эти не дает им это сделать, они же этого не сделают. Так российским этим, значит...
Нет, списки есть же наши. У них.
The Russian public is quickly learning that the information they get from the internet inside their home country is only a fraction of the truth. But even if you live in a free country, there's still so much more information when you experience the internet from another country's perspective. That's why I wanted to talk about today's sponsor, Atlas VPN. Get the big deal now because Atlas VPN is just $1.83 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your privacy and get the many benefits of Atlas VPN for this ridiculously low price. You can take advantage of this offer by just clicking the link in the description below. But be quick, it is a limited time offer. Atlas VPN acts like a digital tunnel, preventing bad actors from hitting you with ads, malicious links, and they even notify you when someone is trying to steal your data. And a VPN can give you access to parts of the internet that may not be available in your country, like many of your favorite shows on Netflix or Hulu. It can let you compare price deals where hotels or airlines might offer better prices in different currencies. And a VPN can keep your Google searches private. Oh, and it protects unlimited devices. So get the big deal now because Atlas VPN is just $1.83 a month, and it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your privacy and get the many benefits of Atlas VPN for this ridiculously low price. But be quick, this deal is limited time only. So click the link in the description below. So this is one of the things that, they're claiming that Russian intelligence wouldn't allow this to happen or should be actively trying to stop these sort of calls. And the reality is that as big as even the largest government agencies can be, it's oftentimes very difficult to stop. And perhaps Russian intelligence does stop. Let's say they stop 90% of Ukrainian attempts to phish Russian families. Well, that still would mean hundreds or even thousands of calls get through, especially in this era of AI, automated tools. It's not inconceivable that you could simply have a chatbot of some sort on the other end, producing a sort of facsimile of harassing voice messages. And again, when you talk about running a server like that, you could have a chatbot making hundreds of thousands of calls to Russians on any given day. So technology, I think, is going to make this sort of action much more common in war. Misinformation, disinformation, spamming phone calls, harassment. It's just going to be at a scale and personalized. Because here's the thing to remember, and here's what I actually think is probably the future of conflict in some ways, is that you will say, here's a Russian soldier on the front lines, or more likely a Russian officer, let's say a brigade commander, someone of some level of import. And your intelligence agency says, I want to really crush the morale of this brigade commander. Well, you could intercept phone calls. We know now that with a 1-minute audio recording, you can produce a good facsimile of the voice of a loved one. Even now, we're starting to see scams of where people are told their loved ones have actually been like kidnapped, and the kidnappers demand ransom, not realizing that they've simply found a daughter's TikTok account and pulled the voice and created a facsimile and then use that to produce authentic sounding audio. You could do the same thing to a brigade commander, create the facsimile that a child, for example, has been kidnapped by Ukrainian intelligence, and she might sound like the daughter. She may even know things about herself. Again, information gleaned from her social medias, from openly available records, or hacked files. For example, hacking a university database. And it could be, again, enough to destroy the morale of a soldier, to make them really doubt and possibly even convince them, to effectively be able to convince them that, yes, I'm important enough. Yes, Ukrainian intelligence has targeted my family, because I just heard a phone call where my daughter says she was taken from, astronomy 301 with Professor McDougal. And he goes, man, that's exactly the class that she's in. And it sounded like her. And now she says that if I don't abandon my posts, Ukrainian intelligence is going to take her out. Scary stuff. And I think that's, unfortunately, that's not just the future. You could do that in the present.
А откуда они у них?
Я тебе потом расскажу, не по телефону.
Наши российские дают, потом рассказывать. То, что я тебе говорю, наши российская дырявая,
Gee, I can't imagine why people were high-fiving Wagner when they tried to capture Rostov-on-Don and seize the country. You could see more and more of these phone calls. You're hearing Russians in Russia who are explicitly bad-mouthing the country, saying things that normally in an authoritarian country, remember, this is illegal. The friend saying this is a felony level crime in Russia, punishable with a jail sentence. So you have to understand that this is a really, really explicit and forward statement of a lack of faith in the Russian state. And as we've seen, the Russian state isn't that powerful. It basically was unable to stop a few thousand Wagner troops. So there's no way they are going to be able to. So they rely, as all states do, on the perception that they're more effective than they are. And once that perception's gone, and you believe the state isn't actually that good at its job, then you run the risk of stuff like this, where people believe that that the rules don't apply to them, or that the rules are just paper thin.
За деньги все продают. Так оно и есть, как всегда и было. Россия была всегда. Есть и будет проституткой, которую можно купить и продать. Зимой снега России никто не даст со своего двора бесплатно.
He's accusing the Russian intelligence services actually of selling the information. And this is actually really common, selling data and lists and emails. This is just a generally common thing.
Вот и продают все вот эти списки, все эти. Хорошо, если даже и списки есть, ладно, в рот его. Откуда они, солдат?
And among Russian hackers, selling personal data is a very common way to make potentially a lot of money. Some spam advertisers will pay upwards of 50 cents an email. So if you can hack 1 million emails, which again is something you could get easily from probably a mid-sized health system in the United States, or just about any sort of billing or payment processing company of any size, you could easily turn that into $500,000, which is never work again money in Russian rubles.
Матерям ихние номера откуда они знают? У них все связи есть, все, что хотят, они могут найти, и через любого они это все делают. Почему наши солдаты ни одного из их матерей не знают, кто такие? Только одна отмазка, знаешь какая? Ой, это наемники из-за границы. Да подобного. Там этих хохлов куча.
As that friend of Russian soldiers said, Russians love money. Many of Russian soldiers went to Ukraine just to get paid. But not every one of them got what he was promised to get. Just like the soldier from the next interception. Let's listen to it.
Ну что там тебе нифига не разузнать, не заплатят, не заплатят.
Вот завтра мама сходит, все. Пока еще ничего, но они...
Ah, yes, pay issues. Guys, if I will tell you, as someone who was deployed during the 2010-2011 government shutdown or shutdown threat, I think they ended up, the government was shut down for less than 2 weeks. So we never received a pay disruption. But I'll tell you, from a morale perspective, it felt like being spit in the face by Congress to see a bunch of brain dead, empty suits in DC hold the pay hostage of soldiers in a combat zone. It's hard to understate the level of revoltingness. Because remember, in a combat zone, yes, you have food and water and your needs are met. But imagine you're deployed, your young kids are at home, your wife is at home, and that's your rent check. So like you can't help your family, you can't leave, you can't pick up a side gig, tendon bar, or being a bouncer. You have no choice to continue to work unpaid for an indefinite amount of time while your wife and child don't know how they're going to make rent on the other side of the world and are at risk of homelessness or starving. And if you see stuff like that, I will tell you, it makes you understand why the Wagner Group was like, we will march to Moscow and burn this country to the ground. Again, part of being a soldier is an agreement between the state and the soldier, right? Soldier puts his life on the line for the state, but the state promises to share with them the fruits and benefits of the country that they protect, right? This is why the VA provides health care for veterans. This is why there's a pension. This is why there's the GI Bill. That's why these benefits exist, because the state owes its soldiers something as the soldiers have provided something to the state. And it's no different in Russia, right? It's no different in any country. Part of being a Russian soldier is that you get paid and that you receive benefits. And it's not a negotiable aspect of being a soldier. You defend the state, and the state is supposed to do something for you. And when the state fails in that duty, it is enraging to a soldier who does do their duty, right? I mean, imagine following your agreement up until your very life, like giving your life for your country, and that you're willing to do that, and the state can't honor the part where they were going to send you a couple of bucks every 2 weeks. Yeah, it's enraging.
Они в среду только выясняли, может сейчас что-то закинут, но мама завтра пойдет точно. Все решат. Нашли меня, где я там есть, что я приписан боевые. Боевые раз в 3 месяца буду платить, а как бы подъемные, мне уже, короче, больше пол-лимона торчат, 600 тысяч где-то в районе того. Губернатор. А вот когда это будет, я хочу, чтобы хоть что-то перевели. Приехать не голодно.
$7,000 in Russia is a massive sum of money. I would say that's probably equivalent to roughly like $70,000 in the US. Let me see. Average rent Russia. So according to Cost of Living Abroad in 2023, average rent in the center of a major city is about $460. So that is the equivalent. Oh, if you were talking about that in somewhere like San Francisco or DC or New York, you'd be looking at probably 460 is like 2,500, so a 5 times multiplier. So yeah, this here is about $35,000 he's owed. we're ballparking it. I know this is not how you do PPI, but we're spitballing here.
Да, так на войне еще и не платят.
Так вот, Джех, не только у меня такая проблема, есть еще вот со мной, ну, кто вместе пришел. И мобиком, и всем подряд. Вот все.
Guys, I returned from my vacation, so now I will post more videos for you. Thanks for watching and for your support. I'll see you next time.
And thank you guys, as always, for watching. Be sure to check out Insight. Thanks a lot to today's sponsor, Atlas VPN, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.